everybody. So it's kind of hard to believe, but I guess I'm going to be wrapping up soon. I've only got 3 chapters after this, so this is chapter 12, and then I'm going to be rounding out with the other 3 chapters very soon. Yeah, so I'll probably be starting. I'm going to be taking off next week. When this originally aired, I was streaming every day, and it would have ended off on the 1st of July, but I'm taking Canada Day off because I am. So my last chapter will end up on the Thursday, barring any unforeseen circumstances, which, knock on wood, everything's fine. Give me a minute here before I get too far into this. I've had so many technical issues this week, I swear. Because I love that it says I'm live, but doesn't always mean anything. And magic. Okay, so without further ado, this is chapter 12. Yeah, and also you'll note there's a cat. So, chapter 12 of Stonecaller. The boy was likely 8 summers old, very scruffy looking. His clothing had once been fine cloth, well tailored, the sort someone of high quality would wear. By now, though, it was stained and showing some wear at the knees and elbows. He stared up at the lady with a truculent look. The man who had brought him in was a servant, an upper servant, from his well-fed look and his own good clothing. "This is the son of the late Batlas, lady. I felt you would wish to have the disposal of him for yourself." The lady looked at the servant. "Whatever else I may be, I do not make war on small boys, nor carry over my anger from father to son. I appreciate your bringing him here. Someone give this man 10 silver pieces for his trouble, and get him out of my sight." The servant, who had surely been hoping for something more, perhaps a place in the lady's service, opened his mouth to protest, then shut it. He may have misjudged the lady's attitude toward her late enemy's son, but he knew that protesting could only worsen his situation. The lady barely waited until he was out of the room before he turned to the boy. "What is your name?" "I am Batlas, son of Batlas," he said defiantly. "Did you kill my father?" "Not with my own hands, but he died in battle against me, so I suppose I could be said to have killed him. He told me if you ever got a hold of me, you'd feed me to the dogs. I don't care. You can kill me, but you can never make me serve you." Quedrum knew the boy had no idea what sort of danger he might be in, but saw as well that he was determined to be brave. He also knew the best course for the lady would be to have someone quietly do away with Batlas's son. Despite that, he doubted the lady would do so. "No, Batlas, I won't throw you to the dogs, or any such. I shall take you home as a foster son in my household, and when you grow old enough, if you are equal to the task, I will give you your father's lands to rule." Quedrum knew this went over the boy's head, save perhaps the knowledge that no one would throw him to the dogs. Having steeled himself against this worst fate, he wasn't sure how to take this news. The Carmista looked up at those around. "Find me someone who knows how to care for boys, and make sure they know the difference between boys who are prisoners and boys who are guests. Batlas, son of Batlas, is a guest." "Now what of the boy's mother?" "She hasn't been found as yet, lady," answered Quibel. "We've been tracking rumors. There's one story that some group of servants are holding her prisoner, hoping to get a better reward from you than they would from me. There are also stories about her hiding from your vengeance in this or that noble's house, disguised as a servant." None of those stories have proven to be more than great imagination, but we can't ignore them. There's even a tale that she set out in disguise to go to the king of Davelash to plead for aid. She hasn't gone back to her father's household? Her father died 5 years back, lady, and I've heard that her younger brother, who inherited, has little use for her. Just to be safe, we've sent people off to her brother's estate to inquire into matters. Well done. I'm sure we'll all feel better once the loose ends are tied up. See to it that more reward can be expected for living people than for dead bodies. Now, how has the fine collection been proceeding? Tolerably well, lady. Only half a dozen lords have tried to evade payment. We caught 3 almost at once, and the other 3, well, they're on their track, lady. You've done very well, Cabell. Casabano oversaw the destruction of the buildings in which Batlas had worked his magic, along with all the notes and writings which the Carmost had done regarding his work. There's going to be an uneasy quality to the land and air hereabouts for some time, he told Quedrum. I've done cleansing spells, and fire will complete the cleansing, inasmuch as anything but time can cleanse it from what has gone on here. He sighed. There were some worthwhile things in there, some spells to help crops grow, to encourage desirable qualities in crops grown from certain seed, in the offspring of certain animals. But the whole was just too tinged with baneful influences to be worth the risk. What risk would that be? Possibly none at all, but there is too much chance anyone who uses works from that workshop will fall into less savory practices, and always for the best of reasons. I will harm some in doing this, but I will help numerous others. You see? I believe so. They left a small garrison under Quebel, to whom Anna Versti had given the title Vice Carmost, and marched for Higfrid. A letter from King Falcedon of Davelash waited for the lady. She had read it at a council meeting. He says, "Let there be peace between the Carmostat and the Carmostat, for this constant bickering between brothers offends my soul." Guathnarin looked up. It's almost as if he hadn't been made aware of the summer's campaign or its results. The letter went on. I greatly desire that the pottery soldiers of Atlas, along with all writings regarding their making and employment, be sent to me. Such things are too dangerous to be left in the hands of a subordinate. Now I understand, Guathnarin said. Here is a king pressing for an excuse to make war. He surely knew our intent was to destroy the pottery men and all Batlas's magical work, so after the fact he demands that they all be sent to him. When we respond with the truth, that we've destroyed the whole filthy lot, he will claim we were hiding it from him and declare war. War again! The lady clenched a fist on the table. We've had too much war, and we're too small to fight against the king, especially not in light of the losses we've taken in the last years. We can draw on Dora's resources. They haven't lost as heavily as we. Yes, she said. If it comes to a fight, we will do that. But we will have to try to put off for that day as long as possible. Exactly, said Guathnarin. We'll send him placating letters and gifts for as long as we can. But I'm afraid, lady, it will ultimately come to war, which we won't win. The Carmostat of Higfrid, even with the help from Dora, against all the might of the king put forth, we're outnumbered. We'll have to play our own game. How many Carmostats are there who would join us, if only for fear that they might be next once the king has dealt with us? She smiled, just barely, then seemed to take heart. She looked at Quedrum. Quedrum, I think we may be keeping you busy the next year or more, going from place to juggle stones for the edification of our friends. Are you willing? Quedrum, who found himself thinking he'd like to kiss away those cares and worries from her face, sat up suddenly. I'm yours to command, lady. And stop thinking foolishness, Quedrum, he said to himself. Did you know this place was at the utter ends of the earth and over horrible roads besides when you agreed to come here, Quedrum? I knew fall was not a good season for traveling, Jenny, but it has to be done. So tell me again, how is it that being your friends has us out here getting cold and wet and uncomfortable? I agreed to take the job so long as I could pick at least 2 of the people who will be traveling with me. So I picked you and Malsa, so I would have someone to talk to. I wish you'd picked us to stay warm at home and think good thoughts towards you. Quedrum grinned. I couldn't show up at these people's cities all alone, like some traveling entertainer. You're along to add to my stature. Besides, you're known as friends of the close friend of the Carmista. By rising in my favor, you've risen in hers. By rising in your favor, we've become cold and wet. Don't you think it's time to camp for the night? Just over the next rise. All the complaints were mostly good-natured, though. All the complaints were mostly good-natured, though this good nature tended to become a bit strained after 3 days of fine, cold rain. The fire-starting talisman he'd bought from Shopakalish continued to live up to its guarantee. The workmen were taking advantage of a break in the weather to begin the wall for the new garden, as much as the title has a name for the Carmost. In trousers and short rain capes, they began taking the stacked stones and setting them up within the boundaries marked evenly by wooden spaced pegs. The garden itself had been tilled for several years previous, planted with rows of vegetables. It was only this year that the Carmost had decided to enclose it. You see it here in the beginning stages, Lord Quedrum, said the Carmost Yotapha, a stout and red-faced man. Next year it will be something to behold. Drystone, I see. Quedrum said it for something to say, but he knew the basics of drystone work, but he was scarcely an expert. Oh yes, drystone, of course. It'll give when the soil subsides without having the whole lot fall over. Quedrum watched the workmen as they laid the stones, carefully choosing the right size and shape for a particular spot. The wall's base was broad and would slope upwards from both inside and out. This would cause the stones to lock together, holding them in place. He began to pull stones from the stacks and set them on the walls. With shouts and curses, the workmen jumped back as the stones drifted over to settle in position. The Carmost himself let go with an oath. Destroyer's teeth! Then, is this your doing, Lord Quedrum? Yes. Have I not got it right? He asked as though the business of moving stones through the air were something very common. Most building in the Arundels had been dry stonework, mortar being stigmatized as a lowland affectation. Quedrum knew the basic techniques, though he hadn't put them into practice in years. Well, yes, but... The Carmost looked at him closely. One hears stories, you know, and if one doesn't believe them all, that's just because... But you are moving the stones, aren't you? You actually have the power to move the stones like they say. Yes, I have an ability to move stones. I'm not sure what tales you must have heard, but there's at least some truth in them. I can move stones, lift them, stack them, and throw them, of course. The Carmost eyed the growing wall. Is it safe? Safe? Oh, I think it's as safe as any wall. I haven't done a great deal of dry stonework recently, of course, but I think I can manage a simple garden wall. No, but one hears about stones being moved thus, and they're, unhealthy? Unhealthy? You mean cursed? No, there's no curse involved. I suspect the tale of the curse comes from the fact that I've been using this power in battles and that I can hit any target I can see. You will recall the Lady Anna Vristi spent a winter in refuge in the hills. During that winter, I did a lot of hunting with my sling and my power over stones. No one took any harm from eating the game I brought in. Like many of his decisions, this business of helping to build the wall had been a sudden notion which, even he thought on it, seemed to be a very good idea. An even better idea, in fact, than juggling and balancing stones, with the implied threat of being able to throw them at anyone he considered an enemy. Building something up showed the same ability to use stones, There'd be an inference that he could also tear things down and might leave a better taste in the mouth of people. Building something up shows the same ability to use the stones. There'd be an inference that he could also use to tear things down and it might leave a better taste in the mouth of people he showed it to. Not quite so directly stating, think what I could do with these stones when I'm juggling. Yes, he thought as he put the wall together, building things with stones might be altogether a lot better than throwing them at targets. But if the impression doesn't come through properly, I can always do the juggling. Malsanto confirmed his new view of things as they went off to the next place. Brilliant notion, Quedrum. Building that piece of wall for him? It's a subtle suggestion on the lines of, I can build this wall up. That occurred to me also after I started building the wall. I just thought building making something useful would leave a better feeling than juggling stones. People would see the juggling as a threat, which would be useful in its way, but just might get people's backs up. I couldn't always build someone's wall for them, he reported to the council when he returned to Higford. But mostly I did something. Demonstrated that I could build a wall, put a bed of stone into a ford, or even just haul all the stones out of a field and stack them neatly beside it. I think most of them were impressed. How much that means to our cause, I don't know. You did all that could be expected of you, Quedrum. Thank you again. Another letter arrived from the king. He declared himself grieved that he had not received the information on the potterymen. We've already told him the potterymen have been destroyed, along with all the information pertaining to them, Gwathnarin said. He's pressing on us. I think he may be ready to go to war. He may be more ready to go to war than we'd thought. Or perhaps he knows how unready we are, said the lady said. But it gets worse. Listen to this. It's been made known to me that one among your folk has power over stones. I would see this person for myself. Only send him to me, and many other faults may be dismissed. For certain, Gwathnarin said. If he has not already made the connection, as soon as he sees Quedrum, he will know him for sure for the one who faced him down with the stones of the palace, wishing to be rid of the lady. I doubt Quedrum would survive long. Yes, I think we had best claim that Quedrum is ill. Not seriously ill, but unable to travel as yet. That was a super short chapter. Like, really, really short, but that's okay. As you can see, this one needs a lot of fleshing out. I'm not sure who's all still in the chat, but I'll just answer a few questions because I was basically reading, so I couldn't really answer. That's part of the way I have to run the stream is because I'm doing a live reading, so it's really difficult for me to be able to like look up and see everybody who's all you lovely people who are chatting to me. So someone was asking me, where do I live? I live in Burnaby, and actually, I know it looks like it's super sunny. It's just the way the light is catching the window. It's actually overcast right now, and it's about to start raining some more because I live on the west coast, so in BC area in Canada. So that's where I'm approximately. But yeah, from there, like I said, I will be back again on Monday, and I'll have 3 more chapters after that. I think they're a little bit longer than this. What I can tell from this is that he needed to flesh this out. I think he had the basic ideas here, which is why it's really, really scant and kind of jumps a lot, because I think he started bits of the chapters that he knew he wanted to have in and then just needed to flesh them out more. It could also be finished and he thought that this was ready to go, but there's some heavy editing that needs to be done, so that's fair. But actually, basically, if anyone has any questions, feel free. Otherwise, I will wrap up for tonight, and I will talk to everybody again on Monday. Okay. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.